Good evening, Brian.
Good evening,
How are you
Michael.
doing?
How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Very good.
Um, so we're having one of our nightly sessions again about the Swedish regulatory system. Sweden is about to do their one of their biggest regulatory reforms yet, and I know no other having the knowledge that you have regarding performance-based building regulatory systems. So, what do you think so far from what you've heard? Are we on track?
Well, I appreciate that, Michael. I have been looking at regulatory systems for about 20 years, so I find it really interesting to see what Sweden's doing, knowing that it's had a few changes going back to 94 and then more recently in around 2011, as I recall. So it's really interesting to see how they're trying to kind of refocus the regulation and actually engage the market in trying to figure out how to do it better. So I like that a lot. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think to me it's a really huge opportunity, and I think that we need these shifts from time to time where we can focus on the new opportunities, and I think this is one of these really big opportunities where we can really get together in the sector to look at how can we do things differently to improve. And I think it's a big co-creation journey ahead of us. What's your impression in other countries? What's the recipe for good collaboration?
Well, I think the fundamental recipe for good collaboration is everybody wanting to be part of the discussion and come to the table with an open mind and look at what can be done. So not just kind of looking at the barriers that could be created, but more looking at the opportunities that could be gained. I think countries are always looking for ways to provide more opportunities for innovation in materials and systems and technologies to get everybody working together and to step back a little bit from government to allow that extra freedom that comes with more involvement from the market. It's a challenge, but it's also a real opportunity.
Yeah, when you're saying that, and I can't stop thinking about what I feel about the system that we have is that we focus a lot on compliance. We have quite strict regulations, especially in certain areas such as safety, and we focus a lot on more like finding the scapegoats who does not abide the rules, rather than shifting to a system where we look for the bigger value from a life cycle perspective to the end user in the building and so on. What's your impression?
Well, I think it's challenging to move from kind of compliance, what we would call in the States as command and control, where everybody's told what to do and everybody falls in line and does everything they're supposed to one where you're giving more responsibility and accountability over to the actors in the market who have to kind of step up to the table and raise the bar, as it were, for everybody involved. So, different countries have taken different approaches. If you look at the English regulatory system, the regulations are only 19 pages. It's all functional requirements, and the market can decide how they're going to comply with that. You look at Australia, they have a private certification scheme where, they're allowing different mechanisms to come in and help out on the compliance side. So there are different opportunities and different challenges with each, but I think, having discussions around the opportunities brings to light where possibilities exist and where concerns need to be put in place.
Yeah, I agree. Um, and I think one thing to me is that the current system sort of like cements sort of like what's important to society, but we forget the broader interests in society. So maybe one way of looking at this shift is also to ensure that we have a broader range of interests and societal goals that we can all agree on, to sort of like broaden the perspective and also look further into the life of a building.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues wrapped up in this. I mean, I think generally, and it varies by country, but people look at regulation, to be only when needed, and to step in, when the market isn't able or willing to be able to take care of themselves and deliver what's expected. So some regulations, like the U.S., are hundreds of pages long because we have a really litigious environment, and it makes it hard to innovate. In other situations, in other countries, the regulatory touch is lighter, and that allows for more flexibility and opportunity. And I think with that flexibility and opportunity, it allows the market to respond better to client needs and societal needs in a more holistic manner, because you're not focused on a particular discipline in terms of, I'm trying to do just the structural or just the energy or just the fire. The team is looking at, how do I make a high quality building that's going to work for the people who use it? So if you can change the mindset a little bit to that user-centered focused and think about the building, how it's going to be used over its lifetime, and get everybody talking about how to do that, that gives you a lot of opportunities.
Right. A key to success is co-creation. So co-creating along this journey when we shape the system is crucial. And one obstacle that I see is that we, as we've seen in other countries, we get stuck in silos, and and we see it everywhere. I mean, we divide different regulatory areas by technical discipline, fire safety, acoustics, etc., and we tend to create committed expert groups in these different areas. We even go to universities in faculties that specialize in certain of these technical areas, and maybe end up at multidisciplinary consultancy companies with units or departments with these different technical areas. So how do we break the silos?
Well, it's not easy, and partly because the different disciplines are needed, because no one person or entity has all the expertise necessary. So you have to learn, how to do acoustical design or structural analysis or fire engineering. But I think what's missing is, how do you design buildings, right? So buildings are complex systems of systems. They're not individual parts that you kind of throw on the table and hope they all work together. So you have to have the mindset of looking at the building holistically. And you can bring that down to a simple attribute like a wall. A wall might have sound insulation. It might have structural stability. It might protect fire spread from, one compartment to another. And so the wall has to meet all those performances. And you need to know how to measure that, but you also have to know kind of what's needed and what opportunities and options exist for materials or openings and all the rest. And if you're talking about this, then you can get to an outcome that maybe is a better wall as compared to the prescribed wall.
Right. Yeah, I agree. We see the shift from compliance maybe to proactivity. We try to break the silos to empower the stakeholder groups to co-create and moving the system. We still have societal control and functional performances that you have to achieve. What key takeaway would you like to give to the participants in the sector who are participants on this journey?
Well, there's a few things, I guess. I mean, one thing is, you know, how much regulation do you need to develop a good building and design and construct a good building versus how much do you need to know about how the building should operate and how do you work with the other disciplines to achieve that. So again, I think a little bit there is getting away from, someone or something telling you what to do and more in the mode of how do we work together to achieve this better performing building. I think as part of that, you have to go out and find out, well, what's a better performing building consist of? What are those societal objectives that you really see as important and that you have to maintain? And then, what tools, methods, knowledge, data do you need to make it happen? And then as the sector who has the expertise, you have to get together and be part of developing the methodologies that demonstrate that you've achieved those performances. And so, there's a lot that can be done, but it happens by the sector and the different groups coming together and looking at this as a problem to solve together to create something better, rather than thinking of it as, making small changes to a system that, maybe isn't the best to begin with. Let's take the opportunity to do something better.
Yeah. So a final question. I was thinking some of these shifts, or some of these changes in the regulatory system that Sweden is proposing is, I guess, novel, interesting. But what would you say is Sweden's biggest asset on their journey to succeed in changing the regulatory system?
Well, I think, Sweden is known for innovation in different areas and bringing the innovation to, the regulatory system and the design process is really good. I think being able to learn from what has worked as well as what has not worked in the past, to put that together as part of a holistic method going forward is really good. And I've been encouraged by the engagement I've seen in the discussions about, what are the really important issues to bring forward. So I think it's the, maybe just my impression, but the ability and the knowledge in the market to be able to do more and to innovate. And now how do you take that and put it into the regulatory system, as a collective whole rather than, just as an individual or an individual entity.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. I think that's something quite Scandinavian too. So exciting times.
Sure is. Be interesting to watch as it develops.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
Yep. Thank you. Take care, Michael.